Welcome back everyone, it is Aric from Rare Candy, and today we're going to be breaking down another Astral Radiance deck profile, this time my current list for the brand new Hisuian Samurott VSTAR, which I feel like hasn't had the same amount of attention given to it as some of the other VSTARs in this set, and I guess maybe for good reason. Samurott has had a pretty bad history in the course of the Pokemon TCG. Like, I literally don't think there's ever been a good Samurott, so I can't blame people too much for, not giving this card much of a thought. But I've got to say, I don't think people should be sleeping on Samurott. It's definitely been one of the better decks that I've been experimenting with so far. And I definitely want people to, think about this thing after Astral Radiance comes out. So of course, Samurott is going to be the deck we're checking out. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of this deck profile, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up. Some friends of the channel over at PokeXWord are actually running an Astral Radiance code giveaway right now. If you guys haven't checked them out yet, I definitely suggest you do so. Every week they drop these crosswords that test your TCG knowledge. And I've got to say, it's tougher than I thought. I've been stumped way more than I thought I would be. And for this giveaway, they're doing a special Astral Radiance themed crossword puzzle. So if you do want to win those 50 Astral Radiance codes they're giving out, all you have to do is complete the puzzle and follow the directions they have on their Twitter post. I'll go ahead and drop the links to everything you need down below in the description today. But with that being said, let's jump into today's deck list. So up first, we have 4 copies of Hisuian Samurott V. Of course, we do need this to evolve into our V-Star, and not a whole lot to really say about this card. There are a couple things I do like about it. It does have 220 HP, which does mean an Arceus with a Choice Belt and double Turbo Energy can't knock you out, so that's definitely nice if you are going second against those decks. And the only attack that's like kind of worth mentioning is this first one. Just for a Dark Energy, I believe you discard up to 2 Pokemon tools on your opponent's field, which sometimes can be useful if you're going against a deck that throws down like a big charm early on or something like that. That actually can really mess with the math of our attack. So every now and again, maybe that can be useful, but the second attack here, really not too special. But of course, we have 3 copies of Hisuian Samurott VSTAR, of course, the main attacker of the deck here. Evolving is going to bring this guy all the way up to 270 HP, 2 retreat cost, and a grass weakness. Just 1 attack on this guy though. For 2 Dark Energy, you do 110, plus another 110 if your opponent already has any damage counters on them. And to go with that, we actually have a pretty nice V-Star power as well. It's going to be an ability that says we can place 4 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon. So even though there is a variety of ways we can get damage counters on the field, it's really cool that we do have like a guaranteed instant way of making that happen. Assuming we're not under ability lock of some sort, of course. So if we use this ability on our opponent, that's 4 damage counters plus 220 with this attack, that's 260, which does knock out a couple of fringe V-Stars already. But with a Choice Belt at that point, we're knocking out pretty much any V-Star that's going to be in our path, as well as some of the Dark Weak Pokemon VMAX like Mew or Shadow Rider. I think it is really nice that we are guaranteed pretty much one shot at some point in the game thanks to this ability, which is super cool. So how are we actually getting Samurott set up is kind of the next question, and as you can see, we are choosing to play the Inteleon engine, obviously for Sobble up first, but a little bit more importantly, we also have 4 copies of Drizzile for that Shady Dealings ability. Whenever we evolve into it, we get to search the deck for a trainer card and put it into our hand. And likewise, to go with that, we also have one of the Shady Dealings Inteleon, same ability, but we get 2 trainer cards instead of 1. So these are going to be great to grab those choice belts, supporters, stadiums, whatever we need. But also pretty important for this deck, it's going to be 2 copies of the other Inteleon back from Chilling Reign with that quick shooting ability that allows us to put 2 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon each turn. So of course, this does take us a few turns to build up to Inteleon, but once we get this thing in play, every turn that is going to guarantee that extra 110 with our Samurott V-Star. But Inteleon's not the only other way we are choosing to get damage counters in play. We also have 1 copy of Galarian Zigzagoon in the deck for that Headbutt Tantrum ability. Whenever we bench it, we can place 1 damage counter on one of our opponent's Pokemon. Up next from there, we have a copy of the Baby Galarian Moltres in the deck just to give us a potential single prize attacker for the deck. Its ability allows it to attach 2 Dark Energies from hand whenever you bench it, and at that point, you're only another energy away from being able to use this attack that is 20 plus 50 more for each prize card your opponent has taken. So even though Samurott is largely a 2-hit KO oriented Pokemon, this is just going to give us another potential way at getting a one-shot at some point. Up next from there, we have one of the new Radiant Pokemon that's going to be Radiant Hawlucha. And Radiant Hawlucha is going to be a pretty important card for those Pokemon VMAX matchups, because as long as it's in play, your Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active VMAX. We are generally a little bit shy of a one-shot, but if we just run through the math, 40 damage with the ability, 220 from the attack, that's 260, 290, and then with a Choice Belt, we can one-shot most Pokemon VMAX out there. If need be, we also might need a Zigzagoon Ping or 1 Inteleon Snipe, but without Radiant Hawlucha, it's definitely a little bit harder to reach those numbers sometimes. And our last Pokemon is just going to be one copy of Crobat V to draw until we have 6 cards in our hand. As you can tell, we are kind of a combo-oriented deck here. We need a lot of different modifiers to creep Samurott's damage up, and sometimes you might need to dig a little bit more heavily with something like Crobat to get that last piece that you need for turn. Heading over into our trainer cards, we have 2 copies of Professor's Research up first, of course, just to discard our hand and draw 7. Definitely the most aggressive and deepest drawing supporter that we have in the deck. Up next from there, we have a copy of Raihan, definitely a more situational supporter card, but one that is definitely still pretty good with Samurott because it does have a 2 energy attack cost. So of course with Raihan, we can only play this on a turn when something was knocked out on our opponent's previous turn, but we can attach a basic energy from discard to one of our Pokemon and search our deck for any card in the process. So of course we can cheat that second energy onto maybe a fresh Samurott VSTAR and maybe grab something like a Choice Belt or whatever damage modifier we might need to get that extra 110 with our attack. Up next from there, we have 2 copies of Marnie in the deck. Just for a little bit of hand disruption, of course, both players put their hand at the bottom of their deck. We get 5, our opponent gets 4. But maybe a little bit more disruptive is going to be another new card from Astral Radiance. That's going to be the brand new Roxanne supporter. This is another one of these more like turn situational supporters, but we can only play this one if our opponent has taken 3 or more prize cards. Both players shuffle their hands into their deck. We get 6 and our opponent gets 2. So if you time this right, sometimes this absolutely just crushes your opponent and puts them at an unplayable hand. Of course, we also have 2 copies of Boss's Orders just to choose what we want to attack into. And our last supporter is just going to be 1 copy of Clara in the deck as well. So Clara, I will say right up front, this is a card I mainly have in here because of Galarian Moltres. If you ever decide to cut Moltres, I think you definitely could, at the very least, turn Clara into like an ordinary Rod. But since we are playing the Moltres, this supporter definitely makes sense here. We get up to 2 Pokemon and up to 2 basic energy from discard and put them straight into our hand. So of course, this is just good general recovery to get back maybe things that were knocked out or discarded by research. But if we have Moltres in the discard on those turns that we want it, we can grab Moltres plus 2 dark energy, throw him down, and then at that point, we're only 1 attachment away from being able to attack with our Galarian Moltres here. Going into our stadium cards, we have 1 copy of Path to the Peak. So of course that's going to turn off abilities for Pokemon with a rule box. And we do need to be careful about this because it does actually impact our own Radiant Hawlucha as well. So you do have to make sure you are done using things like Crobat and Hawlucha before you slap that thing down. But Path is still just such a strong card. It shuts down so many great abilities that we already have, but then also a bunch of new abilities coming into the format like Radiant Greninja, Origin Palkia, Darkrai V-Star, you name it. This card is still very, very good. And if you time this with Roxanne, it can really be an oppressive late game play that you have access to. And our other stadium card is going to be 1 copy of Collapse Stadium in the deck as well. So Collapse Stadium, it only allows both players to have up to 4 bench Pokemon, and they do have to discard any that they already have until they have 4. This is really good against Origin Palkia, which I definitely think is going to be one of the big new decks that's going to see the most play after Astral Radiance releases. And Palkia is very reliant on both players having full benches to take one-shots against Pokemon V-Star. But even outside of the Palkia matchup, Collapse can also be cool to discard things like Crobat V from your bench once you no longer need them, and maybe act as kind of like a defensive card to prevent your opponent from getting certain KOs. Heading into our item cards, up first we have 4 copies of Quick Ball in the deck, of course to discard a card from our hand and search our deck for any basic Pokemon. And the discard effect, not even too bad in this deck since we are a dark deck and we can get the energy back out with things like Raihan and of course a brand new item card that is also appearing in this list as well. But up next from there, we have 4 copies of Level Ball, of course, to search out those Pokemon with under 90 HP. So of course, this can get out our Sobbles, but also our Drizziles, the Galarian Zigzagoon, and the Radiant Hawlucha as well. So Level Ball searches out basically like half of our deck, which is sick. And to search out those evolution Pokemon, we also have 3 copies of Evolution Incense in the deck as well. And like I mentioned just a second ago, we don't really mind discarding energy with this deck because we have copies of the brand new Dark Patch in the list as well. Only playing 2 of this, which might look, I think, a little bit jarring at first, but I would definitely insist this is closer to the correct count than like a 4 count in the deck. But Dark Patch allows us to accelerate a basic Dark Energy from discard to one of our benched Dark Pokemon. So one of the issues that Samurott does have is that it does take 2 Dark Energy to get up and running, and if our only Samurott with any energy gets knocked out, this is going to be one of the only ways we have to potentially set up a fresh attacker. But guys, we are not Darkrai V-Star. We are not trying to chain like 10 plus energy in play at any given point. This is going to be a card that we're just going to kind of need maybe once, maybe twice max in a game, especially once you factor in Raihan into the mix as well. Up next from there is going to be 1 copy of Energy Search, kind of keeping on that same theme, but in this case, we of course get a basic energy out of deck. And because we are playing the Inteleon line, we do need some trainer-based ways at actually searching out energy, because otherwise, this is an evolution line or a search engine that wouldn't allow us to actually get those cards. From there, we have 2 copies of Choice Belt in the deck just to increase our damage by 30 to Pokemon V. As I mentioned, very important card to fix our math against certain attackers out there. We also have a copy of Palpad in the deck. This is going to allow us to get back any 2 supporter cards and shuffle them back into our deck. You know, I was kind of struggling with this spot because at different points I had this as a 3rd boss, I had a 3rd research at different points, but I've landed on the Palpad, and I think I definitely like this decision the most because not only can this act as like a 3rd boss's orders, but if we do have to research away our Roxanne or our Clara early on or something like that, we can always Palpad these 1-up supporters and get them back. We have 2 copies of Scoop Up Net in the deck as well, just to, of course, pick up one of our non-Pokemon V or GX Pokemon, put them back into our hand. This is going to be one of the only real, like, switching options our deck has, and we definitely need some because Dark Patch only accelerates energy to bench Pokemon, so we can promote our Inteleon line, use Dark Patch, and then at that point we can scoop up our Inteleon line, put it back into our hand, and actually keep reusing those abilities. Same thing in the case of something like Zigzagoon as well. But I'm also choosing to play 1 copy of Air Balloon right now as well, just to give our Pokemon 2 less retreat. And again, this is mainly just because we do need our Samurotts on bench to use Dark Patch. So ideally, if something gets knocked out, we promote something with Air Balloon, use Dark Patch, then retreat into our attacker. So Air Balloon is definitely flexible. There is argument to maybe just turn this into a switch or escape rope, but I like the idea of Air Balloon just staying in play and acting as a constant pivot every time something gets knocked out. And to round out our deck list, we just have 7 copies of basic Dark Energy. Not a whole lot, but of course Samurot's a relatively low maintenance attacker. If we attack with 3 Samurotts throughout the course of a game, we only really need 6 energy at that point. So the 7th energy combined with 2 Dark Patch and a copy of Raihan, yeah, we should have plenty of energy to actually close out a game with this deck. And so that's where I'm at right now with the Hisuian Samurott deck. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I know a lot of people's attention is kind of focused on other Pokemon V-Star coming out in the set, including even another Dark V-Star being Darkrai. But I really don't think people should be sleeping on Samurott here. I think this is a very energy efficient attacker. It has a great engine to get set up, hits for great numbers against a ton of decks. And up until now, Grass has just not been a relevant type to hit this card for weakness, though of course that might be subject to change since we are getting some good Grass support in this set. But of course, I want to hear from you down below in the comment section. What do you guys think about this list today? Are there any things that you think I should have changed? Do you think this archetype just in general is going to be competitive? Sound off all your thoughts down below in the comment section. But if you guys did wind up enjoying this video today, as always, remember to smack that like button. And if you're feeling a little bit extra generous and want to take that support to the next level, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch at rarecandytcg.com. Links to those will be down below in the description. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.